what it is? Let's jump right into it. What would be the legacy of Migos rapper Takeoff? Yes. Christian Kahari Ball, better known as Takeoff of the trap music trio Migos, was shot dead in Houston Tuesday. He was 28 years old. His loss is just the latest in a string of rappers who have died in gun violence. GBH's arts and culture reporter James Bennett, too, joined Morning Edition hosts Paris Alston and Jeremy Segal to talk about Takeoff's legacy. This transcript has been lightly somewhat edited, but I'm gonna jump right into this for you. To be clear, while Boston might have a pretty robust underground rap scene, we're nowhere near churning out talent the ways places like Atlanta are, where Migos were from. But how would you describe Migos' influence on rap music and culture? James Bennett, he's responding on this saying a lot has been talked about Migos, and Takeoff in particular. We're able to craft a very dense and melodic, but also a very percussive flow. That triplet rhythm where you're squeezing three individual notes into the span of two beats, that's kind of like a signature of that group. There's an old interview with Snoop Dogg actually on GG News Network that was 50 Cent's old show. This is back in 2014, and he is laminating that, in the mid-2010s that all rappers were starting to sound the same. And he starts mimicking this sound also. And so you have Snoop Dogg just going on to be kind of crotchety. And so that's the answer for this matter of outsized influence. Listening to that interview back, it's like, oh yeah, it's annoyed and an old guard. But I don't want to make it clear that style and that flow technique was not invented by this trio. It was not invented by Offset. But they certainly, I think, had something to do with bringing it to a much wider audience outside of Memphis and outside of Atlanta, outside of the South. Just think about it. Really, honestly, just think about it. Now, Paris Alston, and to that point, James, their music has really been a soundtrack for many folks' lives and different periods of their lives. Now, Jeremy and I were just talking about how we remember senior year of college, listening to Migos at any given time, Bad and Bougie, Fight Night, whatever you may have. And James, I know you and I were talking about how Takeoff was our favorite Migo, right? Even though he probably wasn't the most prominent, a lot of the time he got the last verse. But I feel like he was such a great hype man. So what would you say that his impact was individually? And how would you describe his persona, outside the music? Bennett responded with, so I'll do that in two parts. I think the first is that when Takeoff is rapping, it's him because of the sheer density of the lyrics. It took me a bit longer of time to hop onto the Migos train. I do remember Versace and Bad and Bougie and Fight Night and Hannah Montana even. Of course, Quavo and Takeoff released a new album 2 weeks ago that I actually really liked, and that dynamic is so interesting and fun to listen to. And when Takeoff is bringing that energy to that collaboration, it's just kind of like your ears perk up a little bit to try to catch everything that he's trying to say. All the wordplay that's going into it, the quick aside, there's a track on that album called Bars into Caption. It's like the fourth track off of an album, and they actually sample heavily another talented group, Outkast, So Fresh, So Clean, and Takeoff is mimicking Andre 3000's flow. Now, outside of that musical context, I didn't know him personally, but by all accounts, it's like he was just really a chill dude. In fact, here's what I'll say. He was on Drink Champs, one might call it controversial podcast to say the least, and he was with Quavo, and a comment came up about Takeoff feeling a bit underrated or in the shadows or kind of chilling back, and he was like, I'm good at what I do. I want my roses now. Don't wait until I'm gone. I may be kind of do my own thing, but I may be a bit more low-key. But that doesn't mean any of us invested in the music. Do you get what he's saying right there? Think about the way he just said right there. And so you got Siegel hearing that, he's talking about how he wants to be embraced while he's around, smells his flowers, not have them on a grave, essentially. I'm thinking about how we haven't been talking about Takeoff before on NPR. Now, we are in the aftermath of this death. The same thing happened with Nipsey Hussle and his death not too long ago. We're thinking about the way legacy and media coverage are attached to the enduring legacy of figures in rap like Takeoff. Now, Bennett was, trying to wrap his head around this. He was saying, I'll try to keep it brief for a time, but I think it's weird that we have these conversations about violence and community. Wednesday morning, Houston Police Chief Troy Finner had few updates about rapper Takeoff's death the night before in a downtown bowling alley. But after confirming the rapper's identity, Christianique Kahari Ball and the fact that a suspect had not been arrested, he did have something to say. Now, speaking to a crowd of reporters in the room and the millions of fans, Takeoff and his group Migos had amassed Finner cautioned the public about demonizing the hip-hop community following the loss of one of the genre's most famous names in the last decade. Now, sometimes the hip-hop community gets a bad name, and I know a lot of great people in our hip-hop community, and I respect them, he said. We all need to stand together and make sure nobody tears down that industry. Now, the choice to stress that point is tied up in the perception of hip-hop and an ongoing issue that seems to perpetually dog the genre, the premature deaths of some of its most promising artists. But as Finner also stressed, there was no indication Takeoff himself was at all involved in criminal activity and was more than likely just an innocent bystander caught by violence swirling around him. Alongside that, a fraught debate has emerged about the cost of authenticity in the hip-hop community, where artists might feel pressure to live up to the lifestyle they describe in their music. Others say the genre is unfairly scapegoated and that violent lyrics don't translate into real-world violence. Now, successful rap artists aren't insulated from the violence, but after news broke off of Takeoff's death on Tuesday, the music community, mourned the 28-year-old artist who, as a member of the rap trio Migos, pioneered a new sound in rap and hip-hop. Now, on the other hand, but while the fans expressed sorrow at Takeoff's passing, the level of surprise is unique in a way, because to the world of hip-hop, while the death of celebrities at the top of other genres like Drake or Taylor Swift would be extraordinarily unexpected, this year, 7 rappers have been killed. I think it's weird that we have these conversations about violence and community violence with respect to rap after some figures are killed. Takeoff has been killed, and P&B Rock and Young Dolph. It's not an issue, I think, of rap itself. It's like we've divorced this conversation from the larger conversation about gun violence and reform of gun laws and gun access. And so, to me, it's a sense of like annoyance. It's a sense of this is part of like a bigger issue. This isn't unique to rap in any way. Now, Alston, there's a tension for lovers of rap music. I mean, I often feel this way being a woman, specifically a black woman, who loves rap music. And rap music is not always kind to women, right? But you still feel this need to protect this part of your culture that you really love and still embrace, even with that. And Bennett's response into that was, and I get that, right? But I don't know. I was listening to the Ranisators and their song Carolina Drama. And it's just about a little kid going into the barn and seeing his awful stepdad and then breaking a bottle of milk over his head. And then it's like killing him in a cold blood. Like I think about a lot of old blues songs about fights at the saloons and shootings, Judas Priest, Bob Dylan. It's not a rap thing, it's a storytelling mechanism, and conflicts at the heart of a lot of stories. But this is all just some like recent news, guys. Hit that like and subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Stay tuned.